Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff. My second album, Maybe Eventually, is out on CD at my website, chernoffmusic.com. Find the album Maybe Eventually there. That's with Francis Henson on guitar, Carson Tuoro on drums, all original music. Use the code RCP at checkout and you'll get 25% off the album, and I'll mail it to you. Get 25% off my new album, Maybe Eventually, by going to chernoffmusic.com and use the code RCP. All right, I'm not going to lie. The day that I recorded this episode, it was one of those days where I needed a lift. I needed a boost. I was feeling a bit down on myself, in my head. And my goodness, this guest brought such a positive energy, so enthusiastic, so talented, determined to make a positive impact through what she's doing. I was blown away. So I hope this one lifts you up too. Fired up to share it with you. Here we go. Our guest today is the founder of Surrey Jazz Nights, which has transformed a Blenz Coffee in Sullivan Heights in Surrey into a jazz series that has played host to high school students from around Surrey, coming up on 10 times after their event in March it'll have been. And then they have 2 more things coming up. There's a youth jam as part of a bigger City of Surrey event at the Guildford Rec Centre on Saturday, April 6th. And there's also an open mic for youth on Wednesday, April 17th at the Surrey Library Newton branch. So on top of all they've done so far, April is a good month. That's why it's great timing to talk to her. She's also a bassist, has composed music, is involved with the VSO School, with the Ostara Project, and more. So please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Harmeet Kaur Virdee.
Thank you for that.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. The sun has come out. It's springtime. I can't wait.
Yeah, it really does change the mood on everything.
Are you more of a spring person, a summer person? What's your favorite season?
I think my favorite season is actually fall.
Okay.
I really like that fall breeze, and it might just be because that was when I was born, but I really enjoy the mix. Like, it's like that perfect balance between warm and cold, and it's just nice weather. It's usually not that rainy yet, and yeah, you get a good balance in it, because sometimes the summer can be a little bit too warm.
Oh, these days. Yeah. Yeah, my first 2 jazz fests at Rhythm Changes were the heat wave ones, the 2021 and the 2022. The last summer was great, though.
Oh, that was not ideal. I think now that you mention that, I think I was playing the Fort Langley Jazz Festival. That was the first time I met you. That was in that heat wave.
Yeah, that was the 2022 Fort Langley, I think.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. And that was when we had the wave of mosquitoes.
Oh, right.
And I just remember playing on that stage and just my arms swelling up because of the mosquito bites.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that was the first time I ever heard you play, I think. So who did you have? I know you had Karl DeJong playing drums.
Actually,
no? Or did you have Arvin playing drums?
I had Arvin playing drums.
Okay, yeah, those are the 2
Karl,
drummers.
Karl had a bigger role in that festival. He was running
was
around.
Volunteering.
Yeah,
he
was working there. And then I had Rue on tenor sax, and then Justin Hahn on piano.
So that was the first time I heard you. I think you played some original tunes. You might have played some jazz pieces too. It's been a little bit since
it
that
has
game. So
been. Even I'm trying to remember.
I was going to say, do you remember much about what you would have played?
Yeah, I think we had played 2 of my original pieces, and then as well as just what I love to do is, like, I don't really call myself a band leader in that situation. I call myself more of like a facilitator, because I love it when everyone else brings in pieces that they love to play, and also bring in like their own original tunes. So there was like a mixture of like tunes that Rue loved to play and Justin loved to play. So I can't remember them at the moment, but I know that it was fun. There was a good variety in there.
Yeah, I enjoyed the set. It was on that CN rail stage, the one that's where if the train goes by, then you're kind of hooped for 5 minutes.
I think during our sound check there was the train going by, but I'm pretty sure during our set there wasn't a train, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
If that happens, you just got to go with it. You got to play with the train.
Yeah. You mentioned that you like to see it as more of a collective and you don't emphasize your own role as a band leader too much. Is that something you like learned along the way? Is that always a disposition you had? What's going on there? What's your approach?
I think, well, that was actually my first time having that leadership type role. And I don't know, like even in other settings, I don't really want to be the leader because especially in music, because music itself is so collaborative and jazz and improvised music is so collaborative that it's never just one person. Even when someone's soloing, it's the rest of the group that's uplifting them. So that's really where I think that's why I came to that decision back then. And I've just been going with it. And I think it really brings something special of you being able to let other people shine in different ways and have their voices come forward and give them a space to also celebrate their music.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's so much more recent stuff we could talk about. There's a lot going on. Like, I saw you on Sunday at the Ostara Project concert at the McGee Theater. You were doing stuff there. You've been at the CAPU Arts and Entertainment Management program, and I don't know much about that, and I'd love to hear more about that too. There's a lot going on right now, but before we go there, I almost just want to rewind even further than the summer of 2022 and figure out how you got to that point, because that's something I know nothing about. What was your upbringing like just on the way to music in general? If we go as far back as you want, what do you want to talk about like your upbringing?
Okay. Well, I guess like we'll go, how far back do we want to go?
It's up to you.
Well, as a child, like music was a part of like just life, I feel. Like I have a lot of memories of just like dancing around and singing, and my parents in particularly tease me about this time where I was sitting on the swings in our backyard and I was just making up my own songs. And one of them must have been kind of catchy because they still bug me about it. So
okay.
and yeah, just from there I just loved music and everything about it, and it just it ignited something within me. It was something that I wanted to follow. I didn't start like formally doing like what we would call Western music. Before that I was studying like briefly. Well, not briefly, but I feel like I can't say that I am like well versed in Indian classical music, but that is where I originally started because like in our family, like just through prayers we're singing within what is called like rags. So just that, and that's just something like everyone in our family would be singing and playing and doing that. And so I would take classes like that since I was like in kindergarten or grade 2. And then when I got into like grade 5, I decided that I was going to play the guitar. I don't really remember how that happened. I know my brother started taking higher level tabla classes. So in the studio where he was at, there was also a guitar teacher. So I started learning with him. His name is Coach Sandhu in Surrey. And yeah, he really, I think, put the groundwork of music and like just formalizing all those things and all the concepts and being able to like articulate on an instrument. But I started quite young. Like, I don't know how old you are when you're in grade 5. And I was on a full-size guitar.
Oh, yeah. And maybe not the largest human at the time.
Yeah, not the largest human. So there would be times where, a couple weeks would go by and I'm still on the same page in my, I think, what is it, like the Hal Leonard guitar method. Yeah, it's like a well-known, that might be the name of it. And I'm like stuck on page 12 forever. And it's just because like it just wasn't working on the instrument. So I did end up taking like about a year off from that. But something just kept drawing me back to the instrument, which was
the guitar.
Yeah, to the guitar. Yeah. Like just music in general. So here and there, I would just keep practicing and practicing. And then it got to a point where I was like, I think I'm ready to go back. So then we went back to doing guitar lessons, and it was awesome. And I think by then it was like later part of grade 6, and then grade 7 went by. In Surrey, we have elementary school until grade 7. And then it got time to go into high school. So I had the grand plan that I was going to, because my brother, I have an older brother, and he plays drums, and he was in the jazz band and concert band in my high school. And so he was just kind of my inspiration in that sense, that I wanted to do jazz, because jazz in our high school was kind of like where the elite musicians go. Or not really elite, but like, the best of the best. Or like my band teacher, Miss Godo, would say the cream of the crop end up in jazz band. So just watching him perform like at those concerts, the high school band concerts, I'd be like, I'm going to play guitar. Mm-hmm. So I had this plan that I was going to play guitar in jazz band and flute in concert band. Why the flute, I don't know.
So you hadn't played flute yet?
I hadn't played flute. It was just something I was like, I want to try that. And it seems small enough to carry around. So grade 8 comes about, and I get my course schedule, and I had selected band, but I didn't end up getting it. And the rule in our school was that you had to be in concert band to be in jazz band. So me, the first week of school, getting that schedule, I was quite devastated.
Oh yeah.
So then, but thankfully, because of my brother, my parents knew the band teachers, and they knew me. So I was able to talk to them, and we kind of like figured it out. But by then, like 2 or 3 months went by. So then I started a bit late, but when I finally got into concert band, which was like in November or late October, everyone already had their instruments assigned, and everyone had already chosen them. So the funny thing was, I go in, and there's like, probably like, I want to say 5 or 6 flute players already. And they're like, yeah, you can't play flute, but you know what we do have? Bass.
Really? Okay.
And they also needed a bassist in their jazz band. And they already had a guitarist. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm playing the bass now.
Wow. So cold onto the bass at that point. You were expecting to play guitar. And you didn't get to play guitar in your high school band. I didn't get to play guitar. I was kind of devastated. Like I kind of hated the guitarist, but he's one of my closest friends, who's also studying music. And he's going to be a music teacher soon, which is exciting. Nice.
But yeah, it's quite hilarious how you come up with a plan for yourself and it just doesn't pan out that way. But I'm so grateful that I didn't end up on guitar, honestly, because I think that I wasn't at that level to have started jazz guitar, because I was just studying classical guitar before. And I think if I was doing guitar and jazz band, I probably wouldn't have gone into music. I maybe would have gone into some other art form. I think it was because of playing the bass, and that instrument really spoke to me like when I started playing, and I was like, man, this is so fun. Why haven't I played this before? And I started on electric bass, so fun times.
So when they said, okay, you instead of flute, you should go play bass, they were talking about electric bass at that point.
Yeah. Because they weren't going to throw a grade 8 child on a double bass. And at that point, my school actually only had one double bass. And there was only one person who was playing it, which was the other bassist who was in the jazz band. And I was in the junior jazz band, and then we had a senior jazz band as well. Yeah. So it was kind of, I got to see her playing it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But also it's very big.
It's not like what you were saying about the flute.
Exactly. It's small, it's portable. No, it's not. This is why it's funny every time, like, you get people come up to you as a bassist and they're like, you probably wish you picked up the flute. And I was like, well.
They do say that.
Yeah. And I do actually play the flute now.
Yeah. Okay. So you still play flute?
Yeah. I started playing flute later in my high school, and yeah, that's a fun one to play as well. But yeah, what were we saying?
So what
We were
school was
talking about-
this?
Oh, this is Tamanawis Secondary.
Okay, nice.
I don't know if you're familiar with that school. You're probably not, but it's in Surrey. It's on 64th-ish. And like there's 3 schools on that road. So if you keep going down that road, you'll end up by Panorama Ridge and then by Sullivan Heights, which is where the Bell Center is.
Yeah.
Which is where the Jazz Nights take place now. But yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the name, but yeah, I wasn't familiar with the school, and there's so many schools in Surrey, right?
Oh yeah, there is a whole lot of them, and the awesome thing is that they all have amazing band teachers, which is the reason why they can produce such high caliber musicians at such a young age too. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you still play any guitar?
I've been starting recently, just in my bedroom, trying to approach these chords, all these jazzy chords, and it's kind of fun though. It's a new challenge, but I wouldn't say I play guitar. Outside of that, I do teach basic guitar because I have the skills to do that, but. Would I want to be hired on a gig to play guitar? No.
Oh, that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll be there playing things so out of time and no one will call me back.
No problem. There's many guitarists who can leave that too.
Exactly. Leave it to the experts. And I'll stick to bass.
So then what's the road from there as you come out of Tamanawis? What evolves for you from the musical kind of foundation that you laid there? What happens next?
Okay, so fun stories. On the way through high school, I want to say like either in grade 9 or grade 10, a special someone came and did a master class at our school. And this person was the one and only Jody Prosnick. And she brought her double bass with her. And at this point, I was still on electric bass. And I was playing electric bass when she came and did the workshop. And then she brought her double bass and she started playing on it. And I was like, what the heck? You can sound like that on the double bass? And my mind was blown. I was like, wow, I need to like know this person. I want to like study with this person. But I'm like a super shy human, especially in high school. I would barely talk to anyone. So that never happened. I didn't really approach Jody, but she actually remembers me from that time somehow. And she goes to lots of different schools too, and meets a bunch of different kids. But yeah, so from then on, I just kept seeing Jody. It was quite wild. So she was at the Surrey School's Jazz Festival that happens in February, and she was one of the facilitators. They don't do it anymore, but they used to have a day where they did workshops and like master classes with specific instruments. And I think I might be getting the years mixed up, but that was also where I met Bill Kuhn, like one of the first few times. He was doing the rhythm section workshop. And it was just so fun, like having someone who is like, because you don't really get that like in high school where your teacher can like be devoted to that genre of music, because band teachers, they're so awesome that they do concert band, they do jazz band, they do choral music, they do everything and everything under the sun, right? So they can't specifically like sit down and talk to you like, here's the approaches to soloing, or like here's the approaches to playing together in a jazz band. So it's really cool when you get those opportunities to talk to those people, like Bill Kuhn or Jody Prosnick. And so, Jody was around at that festival, and she was adjudicating and all that. So I saw her throughout that day. And then at the end of the festival, she was walking to her car, and she had her son Tristan with her. And my mom was with me because we were watching and staying and watching the other groups play. And I was like to my mom, I was like, that's Jody. Like, we need to ask her for lessons. So my mom was like, okay, let's go talk to her. And I was like, no. So what actually ended up happening is that my mom and I followed Jody and Tristan to their car. in the driveway. We were like it was like very much a stalker moment. And like my mom would be like, yeah, I can like we were pretty close, but then we kept getting more distance because I would hold my mom back. But finally when Jody got to her car, like she kind of turned around. I guess she kind of maybe heard us following her. And she was just like, hey, hello. And then my mom was like, yeah, you know, my daughter plays bass. Like, would you want, like, could we do lessons with you? And she was like, yeah, totally. And gave us her email and all that. And she told us to reach out. And then we didn't reach out.
Classic behavior.
We were almost there, you know. I think there's a reason for people in general. Like there's a reason that there's something stopping you. Sometimes that it might mean that you are not ready for this yet. But other times it's that you're just stopping yourself for no reason. Like you do need to take the leap at some point. But I do also believe in that there are times where you maybe need some more time to get prepared to take this new journey, like start this new journey, because learning with Jody was a whole new chapter in my life, right? I gained so much more knowledge about playing bass, about jazz, about music. And I don't think I was ready at that very particular moment. But eventually I saw her again when we were on our band trip later that year.
Okay.
And she, I was there playing flute. I went to, it was a Sun Peaks festival. And I was playing flute in the concert band. There was we didn't go with a jazz band, so that was why I was on flute. And I was supposed to go to the flute master class because the bassists were going to be stuck with the brass section, or like the tubas, the low brass, like tubas, trombones.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter to me anyways because I was going to go with the flutes. But then like Sunday morning or whenever the last day was where we had the workshops, the instrument specific workshops, my band teacher came to me and she's like, Jody Prosnick is here and she's just about to give a bass master class. So then I went down so excited to see Jody. And I was also like, my mom was there as a chaperone. And I was like, Mom, we still haven't reached out to Jody and we're about to see her. So that before that master class, my mom finally sent the email. Okay.
So you did kind of squish it in there.
It kind of went there. And then I saw her and then it was just so awesome and fun. And she remembered me, which was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, I started taking lessons with her, and that was at KPU because she was, I don't know her specific position, but she was a professor there.
Yeah.
And she kind of started facilitating the jazz stuff that happened at KPU back then. So, going for weekly lessons down to Langley and just hanging out with Jody. And my plan was to actually go and study music at KPU. And then when I was in grade 11 was when KPU closed down.
Closed its music program.
Closed
Kwantlen Polytechnic University still very much exists, but yes, that music program was short-lived in that way. Yeah, if you recall.
Yes, thank you for that correction. No, it doesn't exist at all. The people going there, they're going to nowhere. No.
To us, it might as well be gone, right?
Yeah, if there's no music there, what is left for us?
Yeah.
And the whole reason I was going to go there wasn't necessarily because of their program. It was going to be just because Jody
for her,
was there.
yeah.
And because I just love her energy and I love working with her and being around her. And I was just learning a lot at that age. So when that happened, I was like, okay, we can't really do this anymore. But thankfully, I had more time than some of like my friends who were a year older than me. So my friend Nishant, who I mentioned earlier, he's the guitar player. He's also a clarinetist, and that's actually his major. And so he ended up having to pivot, and he's now at UVic doing his PDP. So that was the option that worked for him. But for me, I knew that I didn't want to study classical music. So UBC was out of the picture. UVic was also out of the picture. And then I was like, okay, there's Capilano and there's Vancouver Island University that's in this area.
Yeah.
So I applied to Cap when I was in grade 12. And then hilarious enough, I went for my audition, and who was the is it the jury or
I guess so,
yeah, the jury. It seems weird to call them that for the audition, but maybe that's just me. I
don't know.
It was Bill Kuhn.
Yeah.
And that summer prior to that, or no, the summer following or prior, I don't know, timeline is weird.
Yeah.
Actually, wait. Time correction here. Before grade 12, in my summer going into grade 12, so at that time I was studying with Jody, and in the summer she was offering the jazz workshops. So there would be a week that would happen at KPU, and then the other weeks would happen at the VSO.
Okay, yeah.
And so I went to that workshop, and then that's where I met officially introduced myself to like Miles Black and all those people, and it was actually there where I took my first solo.
Oh, okay.
Which was,
because it hadn't happened in your school's jazz band or anything.
Yeah, like I had taken a solo in jazz band, but it was not improvised. I was so panicked
I see.
that
Okay,
I was
yeah.
like, I am going to write my own solo on electric bass.
Smart. That's very smart.
And it was on my little suede shoes. And so it worked out. It worked out pretty well. And you got to do what you have to do at that point of time. Like if you're not ready for it, don't push yourself. And that's also what I tell like my students or any of the kids who come and play at the jazz series. Like, do what you're comfortable with, and I'm not going to force you to do anything more than that. Like, just do what you need to do and do what you want to do. So yeah, that I want to share that story. So basically the structure of those jazz workshops, it's intense in like the best way possible, and Jody creates such a beautiful environment that allows people to take risks. And the age range of that camp is like 14 to however old you want to go. So you have a beautiful mixture of like different age levels, different experiences, and it's just really awesome. I find that like there's a lot to be learned from like someone in their 70s starting up on an instrument, and they're just doing it for the pure joy of it. As opposed to like, then you also have the 20-something-year-olds who are studying music in like universities like Cap, and they're also hanging out in the same space. And you don't really see that very often in schools. You do have senior students sometimes, but like school is a different setting. Like this is pure like I'm doing this because I love this so much.
Everybody signed up.
Yeah, exactly. So the day would start off with like a huge like gathering with everybody, and then we'd go into like master classes and theory classes, and I took beginner theory with Miles. It was so fun. We were in the keyboard lab, and we were like soloing over blueses, but everyone was soloing at the same time. It was fabulous. So you don't need to feel like the stress or the worry of like, oh, it's just me. It's like we're all just collaboratively improvising right now. And then it would go off into combos, and there was only one group of kids who were like around my age. So there was one combo that was in that age range. The rest of them were all older. So we were with James Dandifer.
Oh yes.
Which is such a fun experience. He's such a lovely soul. Sometimes you think like, oh, is he a little upset with me? But he's just like that. He's just serious and in like the best way possible, because like like, you know, you wouldn't initially think that he's good with kids, but he actually is. Like, he
has kids too,
yeah, and he has kids himself, right? But if you were to look at him without any context, you might be a little intimidated, but once you get to know him, he's like, wow, he's like so nice. And so hilarious. And just goes with it. I love that guy. So yeah, and then we'd have combos, and then it would split off into like big band and all these other things like big band, vocal ensemble, etc. And then because there would be like too many rhythm section players, so not all the rhythm section players would be in like big band or vocal jazz. So then Miles would run, and he still does this every jazz workshop, even at the VSO. It's a rhythm section jam, and it's like the most funnest thing ever. So basically he just puts everybody in a room, and then he's like, okay, we're just gonna solo on this chord for an hour.
Oh wow.
And it's just like everybody's just it's a mood. Like, I would go there like later down the road, like this past year I was more like the lead in terms of organizing it. So when I needed a break at the end of the day, I would just go in there and just sit down and relax to all the lovely music occurring. But yeah, it was in that rhythm section jam where I think there was just me and like 3 other people and Miles. And then he was like, we were all just playing, probably on a blues. And then he just suddenly was like, okay, bass solo.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what?
You hadn't ever done it before.
I'd never done this before. So I just froze and I didn't play anything. And then Miles was like, I like it very spacious.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And like after he said that, I was like, oh, okay, so nothing is going to go wrong if I do anything like terrible. Like, like, you know, just someone saying like, you know, giving that reassurance of what you're already doing, even if it was unintentional in some degree. But just being that like open to just whatever and letting you explore that. And I think that first experience is what made me like dive into that more, because that following year, like in my jazz band in high school, my band teacher actually chose a bass feature tune called Foundation Issues, and so it's like a whole thing. I don't remember who composed it. That's terrible of me, but yeah, it's a blues, and the bass has a melody, and it's really fun actually, because it's the first time that I was ever in that situation where the band was supporting me instead of me supporting them all the time. Yeah, so it was a fun one, and I think like that first experience soloing was what drove me into doing it more, because it was like, hey, this isn't scary. This is actually fun. Yeah. And now what happened after that? I don't know.
Well, there's so much there.
I know.
The story about how Miles reacted to your first solo is like, it's hilarious at first, but it's also like profound. You're right. Mm-hmm. When you think about how good the environment is that it went that way, right? Exactly.
Like, you know, you think it's funny. Like, obviously it is actually kind of funny, but it's also like, that just shows how caring and kind those people are, and how they really just want you to do your best. And and your best at that moment is enough in that moment. And I think that's really beautiful. And like you said, it is profound. It's like, yeah, like there's so many other ways someone could respond to that. And I think Miles chose the best way, at least for me in that moment.
Yes. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. And it's funny, like, hearing how many of the checkpoints that we actually have in common, because yeah, my upright bass journey started when Jody came to my school and did a master class. Bill was there when I auditioned at CAP. You know, like there's parallels there for sure. So it's a familiar story, but it's such a cool. You're a wonderful storyteller. To hear you walk me through it is so fun.
Thank you.
I will say one of the big differences, I guess, was that for me, the VSO school didn't exist yet
Yeah.
when I was there. I mean, there was the Douglas College Summer Jazz Intensive, which was very important for me. Different setting, different kind of thing. VSO school is kind of a development diagonally from that. Like it's progress in some ways. Like it's a bigger operation, and it's downtown, and then there's more faculty, and there's more stuff going on. But that I recognize how important that has been over the last decade to all the students.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like like the school itself has been around for about like 12 years, and the jazz program, I may have these numbers wrong, but it's been around like 8 or 9 years. Maybe it's getting close to 10, but it wasn't there initially, like when the school was opened. And it was Jody who built that whole program there. Which I think goes to show like why it's so fantastic is like, because Jody, like, she has an early years background as well. So working with young kids, and that's a big portion of what I do as well. I teach early childhood music at the VSO too. So you have these concepts of like holistic learning, and like other things of like, how do you make a space the best kind of space to help your students grow? And a lot of that has to do with like very simple things of like starting in a circle and like greeting every child as they walk in, and that space is really what helps people move through their journey. And Jody really put that in place with all of the classes and programs that happen at the VSO, and that's why I think it's really successful, because even like people who have gone through university and gone through a music program, like they still come back in TA as like teaching assistants in the summer workshops, because it's just such an awesome environment and you just want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I am old enough that the entire VSO school didn't exist when I was in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
And let alone the jazz program. But yeah, so you walked me up to the point where you had that great first experience there. You took your first solo, then you're back at Tamanawha still, and you're in grade 12. And then, and you can't go to KPU for music because that's closed down, but yet other doors are opening for you. You auditioned at CAP. So where do you go next? What happens next?
Yeah. I end up at CAP. That's what happens. Yeah. That's kind of actually, I think we're missing a very key event. 2020 was when I graduated.
Okay.
So the after spring break was when schools were all closed. So the later part of my grade 12 year was all online. Which honestly, I know it's the pandemic itself was not a great thing, of course. But for me personally, I think that I worked a lot better with online school just because I didn't need to deal with all this people nonsense. And I think like high school is such a weird space. Like there's, and I don't think it's ever going to change. Like, I think that's just something that's just going to happen with kids. Like, they're going to go through high school. It's going to be like a weird experience at points, but after you're done with it, you're done with it. And I think having that last few months of my grade 12 year being online really helped my my own mental health, and just like being able to sit back and do things at my pace, because I was also that student that would finish my work like early and then I'd just be sitting in class. But when things were online, I was like, okay, I'm going to spend like the first 2 hours of my day, get through all of my classes, and then just hang out. And I know that's not the same experience for everyone else. Like, everyone else they all work in different ways. And that's the beautiful thing. Like, we're all different people and we all have our own styles of learning that work best for us. And I think that's what the pandemic really showed as well. And pivoting to online is that, people don't really work well online, or certain people do work online. And instead of like thinking, like, I think there's a lot more like approaches to trying to fit whatever you're doing to the person to some degree. Like there's more openness to like, okay, we'll have a hybrid class now, like where it's online and it's in person, or we're pivoting this class to just online, or pivoting this class to just in person. And then there's a lot more like openness to that, which is awesome.
Yeah, you talk about that with a lot of fluency, as if it's either something that you deal with in the administration of VSO or in your arts and management program at CAP. You're speaking about that from a very informed perspective, I can tell.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if I have that much knowledge about it, but sure.
Yeah, it is funny that you mentioned another thing. I was that kind of student too, at my best, I guess, or at least. But we have that in common as well. I got into so much music because I just tried to like blast through everything else, and then take as much time as possible to actually enjoy the good stuff, and not have to deal with what I love that you called the people nonsense. That's a great way, very fair, very diplomatic way to put it.
And you know, people are amazing, but sometimes you just need less of them.
Yeah.
Or like a certain amount of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then you ended up at CAP and you met a bunch of the people who are in your bands now. Like if I was like, oh, who's in your band? Yeah, I mean, you talked about there's Noah Franche-Nolan, who you've also played with.
Yeah, that's actually the new iteration, I would say.
That's like the going ahead, the going forward band. Yeah, okay.
That's
with
the group
Noah?
that I love playing with Noah and Karl and Rue.
Okay.
The thing that really makes a group work is so specific to the people. So you can have like a room of like really high caliber musicians, but if there's like a thing with their energy that isn't fitting properly, or like fitting in the best ways, it kind of it like, obviously the music will still be good, but it won't be like amazing. And this is all like my perspective on this.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that has a really important thing, especially in art forms like music, where it's so collaborative, like I have said before. And when you find those people that you really enjoy playing with, you don't really want to like let go of them. It's like, guys, don't move away. And so when you like, I guess we could dive into that if we wanted to, or we could go timeline wise.
No, I love this. I want to stay there too, and I'll tell you why I love it too, and why it's so timely and cool that you've said that now, because it's been so on my mind. Because my group, I have a quintet now that I'm going ahead with, and in the quintet, everybody I started playing with more than 10 years ago.
Wow.
And the longest people in the quintet I've played with for 15 years. Awesome. So when I realized that all these people were still around and still here, or had come back even, I was like, it was exactly what you said. I was like, oh, I can't let this go, or like, I can't ignore this, because it's here right now, and you don't get those anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
After a certain point. But yeah, no, tell me about your group. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's my group again.
That's right.
That group specifically, like, I think that was where we really dived more into this is a collaborative thing. Like that original group, that was the first group I led with like Justin and Arvind. Like that was just the beginning of this whole concept. But going on and playing with like Rue, Karl, and Noah, I don't know if this is our actual name. This is just what I put on a pamphlet once. We're called Pals. Who knows? That name might change. That's just what our group chat is. And I was like, I don't know what to call ourselves. Yeah. But I think it's very fitting, because we are very good friends. And that all started, my goodness, how on earth did that start? Because Noah was in Toronto for the longest time because he was studying there, and then he stuck around there for a bit. And okay, so we're actually going to go back in time for a second. We'll go back to my CAP days. So at the CAP Jazz, I went through my first year of university. And then I was like, okay, that kind of worked out. And it was a mixture of like online and in-person. Ensembles were in person. All those other classes like ear training, theory were done online. Again, I thought that worked very well for me. Just because I love being at home and working on my stuff in between classes, because I find like when I'm at school, like I can't really focus on other things. Like I found it very hard to actually practice in practice rooms at CAP. Just because, you know, you can hear everyone else practicing. It's not the most soundproof area. But when I got into my second year, the start of it, that everything went to fully in person. And I don't think I was very ready for that.
Oh.
And I didn't know that. Like, as I said before, there's the people aspect of everything. So when I was going to CAP in first year, whenever we had ensembles, there would just be like, you know, my classmates, my ensemble members would be around in the school. Other than that, it's relatively abandoned.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Whereas when I got into second year, it's like everyone from first year to fourth year are all in the same building, walking through all the hallways. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on.
You're like, oh my goodness, it just got a lot smellier in here.
Exactly. And like people, when they go into a space, they add to the energy of that space. And I think everything wasn't adding, and it wasn't sitting well with me. Just the space itself. It's very weird, very strange thing to think about, but it just wasn't working for me. And I was like, okay, I think I need to just take a break from this. So I took a reduced course load, which, you know, wasn't really anything jazz specific. I took my PMI, and then some electives, because all of the jazz courses, they're all like or prerequisites. So it's very hard to actually make it like split evenly.
Yeah.
And the VSO has a program called the Performance Prep Program, which is a gap year program where they fund half of your classes and then you pay for the other half. So they give you a 50% scholarship. And I reached out to Jody and I was like, hey, I'm not going to be doing full-time CAP. And obviously when I came across this decision with a lot of talk with my parents, they were kind of like a little bit concerned. And it is kind of concerning. Like, you're like, oh, we had this plan and now this plan isn't the plan. Like, what are we going to do? So they wanted some type of stability. So I reached out to Jody and I was like, hey, like, is there any way that I can get into the performance prep program? And this was in September. And by then, like, everything's kind of sorted out. And they accept 7 students each year. And they had 6 at that point.
Oh, wow.
So
this is September 2022?
2021.
Okay.
2021.
So over the course of this coming year, yeah, things were really, really starting to reopen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
So yeah, there was one spot available, and because I was there at the jazz workshops the summer, that previous summer in in July, I knew a lot of the faculty and all of the people, and now that I'm thinking about it, I actually was starting to work there. When I was a TA at the jazz workshops, Jody kind of grabbed me, pulled me aside, and was like, hey, do you want a job here? And they're hiring for the Canada Summers jobs. So then I was thrown into the room with the artistic director of the VSO, and I did an interview, which I wasn't prepared for because I was just informed about it.
Right.
And it was for a marketing assistant. So I didn't really have any background in marketing. I did a lot of design stuff in my high school, but in terms of like the method of marketing, I didn't really know, but thankfully they didn't really need that. What I was doing with the school was mostly updating their website and designing stuff occasionally. So it really worked in my favor.
Nice. Mostly to like get people to keep the program registrations active and to get people registering for programs and stuff.
Yeah. I was specifically just going through and updating the faculty list.
Oh, nice.
And even it was a fun, I don't know, I found it fun. Someone else might find this like annoying or like very very hard to do. So I was emailing every faculty member and getting them to send me updated bios, updated headshots, because some of them had been there since the beginning of the school and it was the same bio, which is so out of date.
Yeah, and if nobody reaches out, then it's not going to happen.
Then it's not going to happen. And it's not just reaching out once, as you probably know. It's reaching out multiple times until you get an answer.
Except for you, when I wanted you to come and do an episode with me, we connected right away.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to come back to you, but that's why you're doing this for other people.
Exactly. I think we get each other. It's nice when you have someone who's on the same page.
Yeah.
Because things can work at such a high speed. So yeah, that happened. And so I was working there. So I knew all of the people that were going to interview me for this program. And they were just like, yeah, we love Harmeet. Like, we'll take her on as a student. So I was doing that alongside taking private lessons at taking PMI, which is private lessons at CAP. I was studying with Darren Radke and Jennifer Scott. I was doing voice with her.
Awesome.
So yeah, in that program, it was really nice because I got to just take the time I needed to explore the things I wanted to explore. And CAP has a great program, but I think like for me personally, it wasn't what was going to work for me at that time. I think if I went back like now or in a few years, it would be a lot better. But just like I wasn't ready for that, because who is really ready to go to university that early in their life? You don't even know who you are, like, and you're telling me I need to like know exactly what I want to study as I grow up, and this is going to be the job I have forever. So yeah, I think like specifically like an example is something like ear training. So in ear training at CAP, it's like, okay, you got to be able to hear your dominant 7 chords by this date. And I don't really work well with those kind of deadlines, especially things like learning a concept. And I did very well in that class, but the consequence of that, and I think this happened with several like classes like that, like same thing with theory, is that by the end of it, I'm like, what did I learn? Because we've gone through all these things, but it didn't really sink into my brain. It didn't really stay there because it was so like, I need to do this by this, and then it just goes out at the door so that I can be able to do the next thing. So when I was doing the performance prep program at the VSO, I was able to like just pause and be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on everything in B flat major and all the modes of B flat major for this entire week. And you're really able to like really hone in on those things and explore those things to the best you can. And I think that was what I really needed. I just needed time to really understand these concepts. And I obviously don't understand them to the like, obviously no one can actually know everything.
Yes.
Especially in music. So there's always learning in there. But yeah, it was taking that time, which is what I really needed. And yeah, that kind of happened. And so this was in 2021. So September 2021, guess who comes to town? Noah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So that checks out really well.
Yeah. So because I was in there, the requirements of that program were like, doing private lessons and then being in an ensemble and taking other classes. So I took a combo class, and it was just by chance because they just needed a bass player, and I had known the saxophonist. He lives like down the street from where I live. He's his name is Neil, and he's a retired. No, actually, he's not retired. He's semi-retired gentleman, and he would drive me there, which is so awesome because it's not really easy to get to the school, to the VSO by transit, especially late at night. So yeah, his group needed a bass player. And so I was like, okay, I'll play bass. And then Noah was teaching it. And it was kind of funny because the very first rehearsal, I had a conflicting rehearsal, so I wasn't there. But I had met Noah briefly in during the summer jazz workshops. He just came by and said hi, and then he played at the Frankie's show that the faculty and TA perform at. And so like I don't really remember too much about him then, but I just remember him being nice and like I was being friendly as well. So I guess that did something, because even though I missed the first class, he actually invited me to a show he was doing at Frankie's that following Saturday or Sunday, and I didn't even see him. Like I emailed him and I was like, hey, I can't come to our combo rehearsal today. And he's like, no worries, but hey, do you want to come to my show on Saturday?
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
And he played his music, right?
Yeah.
I was at that show.
Yeah, I think you were. And I can't remember the exact group. Like maybe it was him and then Arvind and then Kay on trumpet. I think that might be their name.
Exactly,
I can't remember exactly. Don't quote us on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just so crazy because I was like, wow, he's really nice.
Yeah.
And kind of from there, like, we just like hanged out and were like, he was teaching the combos, and he's an amazing teacher. I still study with him right now. I study composition with him. And in that combo, like there was all of the important things that have happened in my life kind of are like accidental in some way, as we've seen with me playing the bass and all that and ending up where I ended up. And similar thing with ending up playing with Noah, this configuration of Noah, Rue, and Karl. I had gone into the VSO on a Sunday, which I usually don't do because I was subbing for an early years class. And I walked down after I was done and I saw Noah sitting in the cafe area of the VSO, and I just kind of said hi, and then he's like, hi. He's like, want to join me for a coffee?
Nice.
And I have to say, like, that one chat, like, I don't know, we ended up talking for like an hour at least. And I remember going home to my mom and I'm like, I've learned so much within 1 hour of just talking to Noah over coffee. Like, this is insane. And from there he was like, you know, we should jam. And I was like, oh, okay. And like I was kind of like, wow, this guy I admire so much wants to play with me. What?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I know a saxophonist. Their name's Rue. Maybe they can come. And he was like, oh yeah. And then he also had briefly met Karl, and I was like, yeah, maybe we should bring Karl along. So then we ended up doing that. And we just booked a room at the VSO and we jammed. And I have to say that was a pretty crazy time. And I think that it's just such a special moment because we all like were just calling whatever standards and stuff. But it was like when the four of us were playing, and it's actually Rue who had said this one time to me, is like, when the four of us play together, it's not just the four of us. There's some extra thing that's there.
Wow.
And I find that very interesting, and I think that's actually very like that is what it is. When the four of us play, there is something more than that, and that's the thing that I feel like, at least me, that I'm always looking for, is that connection to something more than the four of us, more than the people who are within that room. Mm-hmm. So I just remember after we would play any tune, like usually when you're at a jam session or just like even jamming with like a select group of people, you're always like chatting in between, or like, you know, like, oh yeah, that was a pretty like nice solo. After we would play like any tune, silence.
Okay.
And like, I think it was because like, at least me, this is how I felt. I don't know how anyone else felt, but I was like, what just happened?
Oh.
Where did we go?
Interesting. I mean, okay, so did you know the other two yet?
Oh, yeah.
You already knew them? Yeah.
Yeah, and
from Cap.
Rue and Karl started a year after me. So I met them at the VSO. And I I think, yeah, Karl was TAing and Rue was there as a participant.
Okay.
And then following years, we were all TAing together. And I don't know, I just remember like playing with Karl and being like, yeah, this really fits. Like it's fitting and it's feeling good. And before the time like playing with Noah, actually maybe it was around the same time. All the timelines are like mangled together.
Yeah.
But around that same time, I think like 2021 was when I started thinking more business wise as the approach of being a musician. I was like, okay, hey guys. I was talking to myself. I don't know why I said guys, but I was talking to myself. And I was
The
like,
royal
okay.
guys, the royal we.
The royal we. Hey everyone. All these places, all these festivals, all these people booking gigs, they're asking for bios and they're asking for videos and demo recordings. And I'm like, I don't actually have any of that, but I think this is important.
Uh-huh.
So around that time when I was starting the performance prep and all that, I really was also thinking about like that business side of music. And I was like, okay, this is the time where I think we need to record something. I need to like record some, even if it's a terrible video, just something that can go out when I apply to places. And as a collective as well. So this was the configuration, which was Karl, Rue, Justin, and I. And because I was a student at the school, they offered the space at a discount and to like have a person there like recording us. So we got like really nice recordings, and I did the same thing where I got everybody to bring in a tune that they wanted to play, and then that they also get that recording as well. If them personally, like they wanted to individually apply to things, they also have that. Because it's not just something that I wanted to be benefiting me, I wanted it to benefit everyone else.
And that's why everybody gets to bring a tune, right?
Yeah.
Some of that tune, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was probably the beginning of that. So those are on YouTube. They're a bit old now, but they're up there. People still look at them, whoever stumbles upon that. And also another thing that came out of that was me actually making my own website, which I really enjoy doing design things as well. So, and I think like it's really interesting how having these small things, like they seem small, but how much of a big impact they have on someone who's trying to book you. Because if you are able to send them a link to just your website, and then there they can see your entire portfolio, like who you are, like nice pictures, nice headshots and all that. And it just adds like a level of professionality to it. And I get a lot of this, like, you know, people not actually knowing, like they think that I'm actually older than I am because of that, because I've like thought of this business side of things and just like have gone to a certain level of that at such a young age. And I think that that's what's really been helping, like just getting like bigger gigs and other things, and just being searchable on Google.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what happened there. And then, yeah, I don't remember how we ended up here and where we're trying to go.
Yeah. Well, then at some point you end up actually converting that into studying at the CAFU Arts and Entertainment Management program.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so that's a great way to go.
It sounds like you're just on the cusp of arriving there because you're starting to think about all this stuff.
Exactly.
And you're wide open. Your perspective is wide open because you've been, you know, you thought about that transition out of your first year of CAP into VSO, and now you're here, and now you have an open mind. You can think about stuff like this.
Exactly. That's such a great point, because that's exactly where that went. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, it wasn't a reminder because I don't know. I don't know yet.
You're like, I don't know where this goes. This seems like the logical direction. But you're so correct, because that program at the VSO ended in June, like the end of June.
And that was right around the time I heard you play it. Heard that later that summer I heard you play it before Langley. Yeah.
And that's actually those videos that we recorded is what I used to apply there.
Right.
Just basically because this program was only a year long, and obviously the parents want security, which is a great thing. It's a great thing that they're looking out for me in that way.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, are you going back to doing jazz? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I had come across like some, like the person, like people, there's a front desk attendants at the school. And one of them, who later like moved up in the school as well. Her name is Kira. She had said to me like, hey, did you know about this program, like arts management? And I was like, what? They have that at CAP?
Yeah.
So then I went to, yeah, it's not a very well known.
I didn't really know about it at the time either. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been around like since the beginning.
It was
of CAP.
around. Yeah.
Which is like, I feel like it's a hidden gem in the best way possible. And I feel like lots of people could actually benefit from doing that program. So I went home and I Googled it and I was like, wow, what? Like you get hands-on learning and you learn like marketing and you learn like record label management, festival management, tour management, like all these really specific arts courses. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And the last 2 terms, which is where I am right now, is a practicum where you go into the world and you are in working with an organization, an arts organization, and going through that. So I had then applied to that program, and I had also, just because I needed to go somewhere, I also applied to SFU for their general studies as well as their design program, which I had gotten into that as well, but I wanted to go towards the CAP thing. And it was kind of a I could probably actually go look back at these, but we had to do like a video to apply, and do like a little portfolio sort of a thing, and do a write-up and all that. And it was just really cool to be able to just talk about things that you're so passionate about. Like, I just remember having so much fun recording that. Like, I made a little PowerPoint and was sharing it, and then just talking about like, oh yeah, this is where I want to go. Like, because that program is really thinking about like your long-term career. Like, where do you want to go? And it was really like a cool way for me to explore that. And always in the back of my mind was this thing of having more opportunities in Surrey and more things to explore there, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But that was something I had always touched on in that interview, online virtual interview process, which I wasn't actually in front of another person, but interviewing with myself.
Yeah.
So then I ended up getting accepted into that program, and it was so much fun. We had a very like small cohort. I think we started off with like 24, and now it's 17 or less than that, like 12, because people go off and get jobs and stuff as well in between. And it's a 2-year program, and yeah, it's just a really fantastic program. I feel like if for anyone who's just trying to make a living in the arts, like it really gives you what you need. It's very practical. It's like, here's this concept and here's how you can apply it into your life. Things like, branding and all that, like all the things under the sun. So, yeah, we went through my first year. The first term of the first year was more like an overview of what's going to happen. And then like we get into this second term where we take more specific classes like record label management, which is also like a really cool class. Knowing like how do you pitch to a playlist, or how do you like what are the things you need to look out in a contract? That is so important.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, please read your contracts before signing them. Don't skim them over. And if you have questions, ask someone.
Yeah, and that goes not just for recordings, but for performing as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Performing, doing interviews, all the things. Even jobs. Like be reading those contracts.
Absolutely.
Please. So yeah, all those things. And then the third term, which was this past September, we got even more specific into things like tour management and artist development, like, and branding with marketing, and loved all those really specific classes on like what can be done to like make a project go from scrap to something that actually happens. And one thing I have missed on was in our first year, we actually had to put on events. That was a large portion of our of our program, and I ended up being a part of like 3 or 4 different groups just because that ended up happening. I don't know why. So one of them was like a winter market where we had different stalls and stuff. And then we also had people from the jazz program play. It was really adorable. It was just at the student union section of the library building. And then we projected a fireplace onto the wall.
Nice.
It was very fun. And then another one was an art specific mixer, so for people to like meet other people in the arts industry and other people at CAP, because you find that like everyone who's in their programs are in their programs. They don't really like mingle with the other people necessarily. Like it doesn't intentionally happen. Like you have to accidentally happen. You have to intentionally do it.
Yeah.
And then the other one was a film festival. So it's called the Rise Film Festival. The first years of this year's AEM program actually chose to do it again, and they just had theirs last week, which was super. They took it to the next level. Honestly, like I'm so proud of them. So we put on a student film festival called the Rise Film Festival. Myself alongside 3 other people, and am I missing? No, it's actually 4. I was trying to count and I was like, I'm sure I'm missing someone. And I just actually ended up in that group by accident again because of my schedule and stuff. And it was just so fun. And that's like an area that I've always had like a passion of. Like I did take film in high school, and just love movies in general. They're so awesome. Just because it's like I think I was chatting with Noah about this a few weeks ago, because we were talking about like writing music and like the idea of thematic writing, and how like you have ideas that all fit within one world, and that's very much what movies do, where you have you have different people's themes, different characters' themes, but they all have the same musical vibe. Essentially, they all belong in the same world, and I think that's another reason why I love film, because it connects all those things, and it's like the visual and the audio, like only together can they tell a story. Like separately they would be cool, but together they make something even awesomer. So yeah, I got to do that. It was lots of fun, just making all those times and everything like that. And then it happened, and it was very successful. We were in the Bosa Theater at CAP, and we had about 50 or so people show up. So there was a lot of empty seats, but that's still a good number
for a school
of people.
Event, random school event, yeah.
Yeah. And this year they just took it to the next level. Like they had a red carpet. They had like I was so proud of them. I was like, man, they really outdone us, but like in the best way possible. And it's so cool to see something that was just like an idea that I had a small part in, but it's now grown to something more than me, and more than our initial group. So yeah, that happened, and all of CAP happened, and it's just that it's really fun putting on events and really fun doing all those things. And I think that's now what has led to me, like it empowered me to start Surrey Jazz Nights.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because it's events and it goes back to where you started to, and now it seems like it's something that, you can see it becoming broader than yourself already, even though you're still leading it and you're still involved, but you have the sense that like it's going to continue. Yeah. And you know who some of the people are who are really appreciating it. There are some schools that you've had multiple times across those 9 ones that you've done so far. You have been doing it pretty much every single month, right from the first one you did, which was almost a year ago. It was last May. Exactly. Was the first one you did. So what was the thing that pushed it over into existence? Like what caused it to happen?
I'd love This is my favorite thing to share. I get this question asked a lot because it's like, why the heck does this thing exist? It's awesome, but what happened? Like, it wasn't here yesterday. So you're probably not familiar with this, but some of the people listening might be. Now, in order for students to graduate high school, they have to do something called a capstone project. You have no idea.
Correct.
Awesome. That's what I thought. My year was the first year to actually start it, which at least at my school is when they transitioned to it. So essentially what the capstone project is that you come up with an idea, a concept of something. It can be like, wanting to reduce like garbage waste or whatever, like anything under the sun. I explored creativity and how can we create more creative spaces and foster this within everyone, because everyone has the capacity to be an artist, was the idea I was exploring. But this is not about that. There was a student at the VSO who was a student in Panorama Ridge. His name is David Cross, and I was his combo at the VSO needed a bass player, so I would just go and hang out with them. And by this point, I was working at the VSO as their jazz programs administrator. So I was just like running the whole jazz program there alongside Jody. It was so fun. And nice. Basically, like, he reached out to me and he was like, so Harmeet, I'm like trying to figure out how can I get more performance opportunities and more gigs as a young musician. And that was what his capstone project was, like an aspect of it. And I was like, and he was like asking specifically like Surrey as well. And I was like, the unfortunate reality is that there is nothing here. And then I was like, let's actually stop complaining about this. Let's try and do something about this. 'Cause honestly, like, that was something that was always in my head. Like I had said before, that was what I was talking about in my application to the Arts and Entertainment Management program. And it was from him asking that question. And I feel like it was the thing that showed that's someone like me that's trying to do what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And I have this philosophy in many settings, is that anything I do, I want it to benefit a younger me and someone who was like me, who is like me. And I carry that with me wherever I go, because I think it's important, because if I can make something a little bit more better for someone else who's trying to do something that I'm doing, I'd love to do that. I'd love to just help those people. So him asking me that, like, I was like, okay, let's do something about this. So I like explored different avenues. I talked to my mom's work. She works at a bank, and they didn't pan out that way. And then I had remembered my best friend from elementary school. Her uncle owned a Blenz Coffee.
Oh.
So I had messaged her and I was like, do you think they would be interested in having music here? and she was like, this sounds like a cool idea. I'll bring it up to him. So then I had a meeting. I went down to Blenz and talked to him and his daughter. His daughter's name is Cushy, and it was with her that I was doing most of the planning with. And they agreed. They're like, yeah, for sure. Let's do this. So, so from there we did our first show, and like, my goodness, was it so cool to see it come together.
Yeah. And it was Panorama Ridge. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Panorama Ridge. And again, man, people seem to not have bass players. This is crazy. I ended up playing bass with them because they needed a bassist.
Because this guy, David Cross,
yeah.
he was playing. Yeah, because it was his project. So he was at Panorama Ridge and he was in the first band.
Yeah, he was in the first band. And his group was him, David, on tenor sax, and then his friend Karnveer on trumpet, his other friend Jep Nam on drums, and Atessa on guitar.
And you.
And me on bass. So we had a fun time. I went to his house and rehearsed, and that was something that I always wanted in as an aspect of this, and it still is, like, there to be a situation of mentorship, like an aspect of mentorship. So I went in and like was rehearsing with them. It wasn't that long of a rehearsal because I had to rush off and do other things too. But I think like it really helped them, like having someone who has gone through playing a bunch of shows and gigs and preparing for that, and just like knowing like, oh yeah, you know, let's not rush on into the tune. Let's do a guitar vamp for like 4 bars, and like really getting them to think about what they're trying to create. And they just like really absorbed everything, and it was an awesome show. Like I really enjoyed playing with them, and we had such a lovely crowd of people. I want to say there were about like 25. The capacity of that venue is 35.
That's not big. Not
it's
a
not
big
big.
place.
Not big at all. So the problem we have now is that we're a little to capacity, maybe over. Nobody told the fire department. Usually we're okay though. Like
Yeah.
but like it's grown so much in that way. Like we have regulars who come, and we have a family who actually came because they saw it on the gig listing on Rhythm Changes,
Which was the greatest thing ever when you told me that. Yeah.
I know. And I was like, what? Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, because it's funny because I hear from people who are like, I live in Surrey or sometimes further, and they talk about how there's not that much going on where they are. So surely when there is, they will see it. They will care. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And they're such a lovely group of people coming to every show, or like almost every show, the shows that they can, and it's just such an awesome environment there. Like everyone's just so happy that there's music, and that just makes me happy as well.
Yeah, and you'll have like just in that small number of people that you can fit in there, you'll have a mix of, you know, the parents of the students, you'll have the randoms, you'll have the a couple of these regular people now who you become familiar with too. So you have just the right mix of people even in such a small
Exactly.
space.
And I think that's like the really cool thing about this space as well, is that music in most cases and many of the arts is that it's very guarded or very like hard to get into, especially if you don't necessarily have the money to access it. So the awesome thing about like doing it, like obviously a coffee shop, like there's still barriers in that as well, where people feel obligated to buy a coffee, right? And maybe you don't have the money to do that, and that's totally okay. So that's like an area of growth. But like we get people who come in and they're like, this is the first time I've heard live music, and I think like I just feel so honored. Like it's so crazy that I get to be a part of that for this person. And like,
wow,
like it's actually mind blowing. Like we have like adults that's the case, or like teenagers, and a few shows we've had a little bit like some babies come in, like little toddlers, and they're just like jamming to the music and all that, and it's so fun. But it's just so crazy, like how doing something like that can have that big of an impact.
Yeah, and you never know how much low-hanging fruit there is out there. I mean, when people do things here, like trying to get a bunch of people out to a show that they're doing, or trying to put out an album or anything in between, and they think about how they're going to get people out or get people to support their music and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, you think about how you would ask your friends, or what, you know, just at the very most basic level, you're just going to, how you're going to announce it to the people who are already following you. But there's so many people out there that you can, it's so easy to forget, you know, once you just get one little kind of lane where something new pops out and reaches a new group of people who haven't been exposed to it before, it's so different than trying to think about how to reach the people who are already in the community. Like it's so cool when you can make it bigger by touching new people like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's such a great point. Like there's so many people, and that's a thing about Surrey. There are so many people, like so many people, because it's such a big area. And like this is only happening in a little corner of Surrey. There's so many different areas of Surrey.
You could have 6 of these, and you could have one in Fleetwood, Newton, Guildford, on and on.
All, like they could technically be all on the same day, and all of them would still be full.
And there would be schools and students to play once a month at each of them, even if they were
that
all
would
the
be
same
a
day.
nightmare for me to organize, but like it could happen. Like let's say I got flagship people in all areas.
Yeah.
And then it ran itself. That would be awesome. But yeah, like a great point with that, and a great segue is like we have that open mic coming up with the Surrey Libraries, and it's really cool to see the type of people who are signing up for that, because it's open to like all genres and all styles, and all age level, like abilities. It's restricted to teens because that's the way that it works. Like with the library, you need to be age specific for their programs, which is totally cool because that's the demographic we're trying to hit as well. And technically it's already full. And I'm like, we do have a portion of like space at the end, which is open, which I'm keeping open, but it's really cool to see the type of kids who are signing up for it, because I got like flute duets. I have like people singing in different languages, and then I also have combos, and I also have a rock group. Like it's crazy. And it's all of these are new people to this. Like there's 2 groups that have played at the show before, but all of them are new people, and I think it's going to be such a fun little show and a fun thing to experience, because I don't know, whenever like I look at the sign up sheets, because I always leave a blur, like a spot for them to just like write whatever, and I like the question is essentially like, tell me about your experience, how you got into music, blah blah blah. Like they can write as little or as much as they want, but I love what everyone has been writing. Like a lot of them, it's like, you know, this is going to be my first time playing, or like I've just started guitar like this year. I may not be the best at this, but I'm really going to give it a try. So like, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm like, that's so awesome that I get to be a part of this with you and watch you go through this. Like, it's so cool. And like, with the minimal amount of marketing that we have been doing, it's been filling up like that. And another thing is that we had the Surrey Schools Jazz Festival back in February, and I was hanging out there all of the days, and I was promoting Surrey Jazz Nights because I have a connection with Trisha Liversedge, who's the organizer of that, and I've been volunteering there for so long. And she was like, "Yeah, put up posters, do all that." So and so many schools come to that festival, like all the schools in Surrey, and then also schools from Richmond, Vancouver, all of that. And all of them got to like witness this in some degree, like just signs on the wall. But, you know, you never know who's going to look at that. And the other thing is that I got to like hand this out to all those band teachers. So, and there's so many, there's bound to be at least one kid in each school that is as attentive as I am. So if I'm aware of like a poster on, just one poster on a wall, there's going to be one kid at least that goes and scans the QR code and looks at it. And by then, like, you know, there's so many schools, like about like 21 or something like that in Surrey high schools specifically. So there you go. You already have 21 kids. And that's like low estimating there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a serendipitous thing that I'm going to describe here. It's not something that either side of this equation, like you or them, would have set up, but like it's totally true that by you doing this, like other people are going to find out about the VSO school down the road. Yeah. Other people are going to find out about Capilano University 2 or 3 years later. Other people are going to go to the Fort Langley Jazz Festival because of the opening that happened from this, even though it didn't have to be designed that way. It's just you created more surface area for that to possibly happen for people. You talked about your own times when you ended up getting exposed to things, and now here's a new way where people can get exposed, because it doesn't happen automatically.
Exactly.
But when there's things like this that reach new people, you're gonna drive people to those places eventually, if the ones who stick around and who are the most interested.
And that's what we're trying to do too, because then they're more aware of what the options are and the opportunities for them down the road.
Yeah, it's just the way it has to be. There has to be attempts at things like this. And this is an example of one that's now been working for a full year pretty much. But there has to be new attempts at things like this for us to keep driving new people to these kinds of places. Yeah. And Jody knew that too when she started the VSO School's jazz program. Yeah, that in and of itself was another kind of thing like that. Because that whole idea of having a program that you could jump to after you were trying to figure out what to do next, or just after you graduate high school or something, like that definitely didn't exist at a previous time. I went to CAP for 1 year and then I left myself. That kind of program wasn't around at that time as an option. So that's an interesting thing that somebody thought of to do that would benefit anybody who's in that position.
Yeah.
And you're just about to finish the CAPU Arts Management program pretty soon, right?
Oh my goodness, yes. We haven't even touched on that. Like, what the heck am I doing right now? Currently, I'm in the last 2 terms, which are the practicum terms. And basically, you're put with an organization that you then work with. And the organization that I'm working with is Buckingham and SAS Management, which is led by Lisa Buck. She's an amazing person, just a wonderful human and an amazing organizer and coordinator. And she will forever have a spot in my heart. So I was in Calgary for quite a bit of time in the earlier part of this year, going there and helping out with Buckingham. If you don't know what Buckingham is, it's a jazz venue down in Calgary, and it's run out of a heritage home, and it has jazz once a week. It's kind of like a secret, but in the best way, like, because you just have really awesome music in this space that you wouldn't particularly imagine there to be music. And yeah, I got to go there. I got to hang out with the musicians and all the people there. And then Lisa also is a part of SAS Management, and she is the manager for the Ostara Project. So at this point in time when we're talking, last week was when the Ostara Project was in Vancouver. Before that, they were down in the Yukon, and then they went to the Salt Spring, and before that they were in Montreal. So this was the time where they were in Vancouver, and they were going to be in the studio for 3 days, and then they had a few shows, and like they had a show in Salt Spring, then White Rock, then the McGee show. So my role within all of this crazy awesomeness was helping Lisa organize their schedule and all that.
Yeah.
So
for 4 vocalists and a quintet of instrumental musicians. So yeah, nine musicians. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just for the McGee show. For the other shows, it was I'm blanking on numbers. Is that 6 people?
Well, still a lot.
It's still a lot. It's
Shruti
a lot
was going
people.
as
Yeah,
like the
Shruti
primary
was going
vocalist.
as the primary vocalist.
And then all those other
like,
vocalists were guests at the McGee show. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. So yeah, a lot of people to coordinate. But I had so much fun doing that. Like, I don't know, I just love working in a spreadsheet and just like laying out details so it's clear for everybody. And, you know, then you don't need to keep it in your head. Like, where is the address? Where are we staying? What are the confirmation numbers? When are everyone's flights? So it was very fun putting that all together. I didn't go on tour with them for like everywhere, but I was with them when they were here in Vancouver. And it was just lots of fun. But I did have a little bit of a tour experience, I would say, when they went off to the Yukon, because there was a problem with the luggage.
As there often is.
As there are. And it was that one of the flights for one of the musicians was delayed by an hour or so. And we had left like a 2.5 hour cushion so that they can catch the following flight that goes to the Yukon and like to Whitehorse. And there's only like limited flights that go to Whitehorse from Vancouver. So it's kind of like you got to get on that one or you're not getting there. So the problem that arose with this flight being delayed, it meant that they only had 30 minutes to get to their connecting flight to Whitehorse. And the silly thing about the luggage was that both airlines were like, yeah, you have to go out and pick up your luggage from the luggage area, like the pickup. I don't know what it's called. Maybe it's called that. The pickup
like
luggage
the baggage,
area. Yeah, the baggage claim. Words are hard sometimes. So they were saying that the musician was going to have to exit out of the security checked area, right? Exit out of the airport of that part, go to the baggage claim and go through security again. And security itself takes so much time depending on what time of day it is. And they only had 30 minutes, and this is when the plane lands. And when that other plane takes off, they start boarding way before that, right? So
yeah.
So I get a call from Lisa, and I knew where everyone was going to be at these times because I had the schedule. And Lisa was like, "We're kind of in a pickle.
Yeah.
Can you help us out?" So I drove down to the airport and picked up the luggage and took it to the other counter.
Oh, nice.
And I got to help out in that way. But it's so cool just being on deck and seeing the things that are going to go wrong. Like, these are things you can't really predict. And that's why, like, it's so important, especially if you're touring or doing anything, is that you just got to be prepared, like as prepared as you can be, so that you can deal with these uncertainties that arise.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And you've hit upon one of the most important parts of that sort of thing, and just the relatively short amount of time that you've spent doing it. Yeah, you've witnessed it, you've seen it, and you know it. That's absolutely right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I saw. You had just been through all of that when I saw you on Sunday at that show.
and on that Sunday was before that was when they were in the studio for 3 days, and I was hanging out with them. It was so fun, so awesome, but also very tiring.
Yeah, because usually you would go from like 10 till 8. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. would be a regular studio day. That's a long day. That's what those days were. And so everyone was tired after that, but it was so awesome. I can't wait for everybody to be able to hear the music when they release their 2 albums. And it's going to be really awesome. Yeah. So so are you going to be involved in the album releases too, or not? That's not quite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, nice.
To some degree, yes. Because, there is a record label. Jody has started a record label in partnership with Felicia, who's a parent of one of her bass students. And they're actually the ones who are releasing Ragaverse's stuff. So I was helping in a very minimal way in some of the publicity related things. So I'll be doing some of that with the Ostara Project as well, if they'll have me. Yeah. but yeah, that's kind of what's going to happen. And it's such a different world. Honestly, like in terms of like getting your stuff onto playlists. And like that's a huge aspect of the music industry now, is like so many of the algorithms are so important to anyone making any type of money, and obviously like streaming services aren't the greatest. So it's like having your stuff in like curated playlists or edited playlists. It just increases your following and the streams that are on those. So it's been very fascinating seeing how all that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's different ways that can happen depending on what the setup is, but it sounds like you have actually been involved maybe at the point of like you're kind of putting the pitch together, writing it, and then you're making sure that the rest of the band members are happy with it, and then you're kind of following some sort of thing that you think is going to be likely to work, and then you're going to submit it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool to see like when things do work, because all of it is like a learning experience. And I feel the same way about like Surrey Jazz Nights, because in terms of marketing and stuff, it's like you got to just try everything until you develop a method, because if that's not your expertise, that's the route you got to go.
Yeah. I have some fun potentially things to take you out with that you can. You don't need to think too much about some of these, or if you want to, or if it's you don't know enough yet because it's something that's happening in the future or you haven't thought about before you can pass. But I just want to throw all these things at you because you have such a level of like sophistication and thought behind all the things that you've been talking about so far that I just want to hear what you think about some of these things. Or this one's not quite like that. So before that though, like hypothetically, one more thing on the Ostara. Hypothetically, if the Ostara Project were to tour Europe next year, would you be have any chance of going with them on that?
It depends if we get funding.
Yes.
See, the thing that was with this group was this tour was that they had applied for the grant and got the funding before I was in the equation.
Right.
I know they had all said like they gladly want me to come along just because it's very useful having an extra pair of hands and an extra brain.
You can't drive to the airport in Germany if they have a luggage problem there.
Yeah, I cannot do that. And you need those people to help you out with that. So
maybe
Europe tour is in the planning.
Uh-huh.
I have been researching for them and looking at potentials, and it will be happening. Who knows when, but it will be happening. It's all dependent on funding.
Yeah. Have you ever written like an artist grant that underwrote a project yet, or is that still some part of it that you haven't been exposed to?
That's still something I am gonna get experience in. I've wrote my first grant a few months ago.
Oh, so you have,
just for myself. It was a Creative BC grant for demo recording. So if that goes through, I'll get to record some stuff, which will be very exciting. But yeah, and that's actually a class I forgot to mention. That was a class we took at CAP called Resource Development, and a large portion of it was grant writing and going through the process of how do you find different avenues of funding for things and how can you fund a project and get support on a project. So that's really helped because I used in that class, we had to like use a project, and it could be like an actual project or a hypothetical project, and I used Surrey Jazz Nights. So this was this past like September to December where I did that, and from there that's where I got my mission statement, because my professor helped me workshop that as well.
Like the mission statement for Surrey Jazz Nights.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which is building community through the celebration of Surrey artists.
Yeah.
It took a while to get there, but we got it now. And it's again like what I was saying before, how there's always these small things like an artist bio that's well written, or like nice looking headshots that really elevate you as a brand and also like an organization as a brand, because then you're able to just put that up or like send that in an email, send that mission statement in an email, and people can have an idea of what you do and what your values are. Yeah.
So for the regular monthlies of Surrey Jazz Nights, you're not going to do one in April because you have the special events. You're going to do two more until the end of the school year in June, then take a summer break or something? Or
no,
you keep going every month?
Go through the summer.
You go all year?
Yeah, we went through the summer. The thing that I've been working on, trying to figure out is equipment, because currently all the students need to bring their own stuff, which I totally recognize like that is not ideal. As a musician myself, I know that's not ideal, but also as a person who's running this, I don't have the money to purchase these instruments and bring them. Like something specific like a drum kit is a piece of equipment that I do not have. So that's something that I want to do, and hopefully if somebody knows someone who's trying to get rid of a nice drum kit, or somebody has ideas of how I can fund this, please contact me.
So, yeah, that's so similar to like how you found the venue.
Exactly. It's you have to put it out there, and then maybe there'll be somebody. But if not, I'm also hopefully going to apply for funding for that as well, because at least a drum kit is what I want to be able to offer, because I understand and know that some students don't have their own drum kit, or it's not something that's easily portable. So I want to be able to offer that at least. Like a keyboard, I would love to do that too, but main priority is drum kit at this moment.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there's bass amp as a consideration too.
Bass amp, it works in my favor because I'm a bassist.
Yeah.
So I do have a bass and a guitar amp, which works out, but I currently just bring an extension cable. That's the only thing I offer them. And I say, if you need help with other things, I will help them though. Like I will help them. Like I'll get in touch with band teachers. I'll figure out ways to get equipment there. And all the band teachers, they're just so lovely. They're so open to this as well. And they really want to see their students succeed too. So that's how it's been running. We've been able to just borrow equipment from schools and stuff. But yeah, I really want to have my own stuff so that in the summer it's easier for these kids because last summer it worked out okay because in July and August, July we had a trio which did not have any drums. This trio was actually from a few different schools and they rehearsed in my basement.
Oh yeah.
And it was their first time playing in a combo. And so they usually just play in like their jazz band at school. And so I had lots of fun, so much fun leading that group and like guiding them through that all. And then it was so fulfilling, like their last rehearsal before their show. I was like, okay, guys, you all run the rehearsal. I'll just sit here on this sofa. And it was so cool seeing them like go through things and like, you know, they played Blue Bossa and they're like, oh man, we didn't really get that ending right. Like, let's go from measure blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is too adorable. It's happening. They have good rehearsal etiquette. So yeah. I cannot remember where we were going.
Oh, it's just you're going to keep doing them every month. Yeah. Year round.
Yeah. Year round. And hopefully get a drum kit.
Yeah. It almost makes you wonder if there's like one kind of major event or something that happens annually as part of the series in the future. Like you get everybody together at like a bigger place or something. You do like a full on kind of concert and you go down the line of like
same level here because that was actually the project that I pitched, like that I worked on and actually have a grant already written for. I can't submit it because it's not in the time frame. Yeah. For an event like that. I called it the Surrey Jazz Nights Showcase. Where the idea is that we have different groups that are playing, and for the way that grant worked, I kind of adjusted it that it would be like people who have graduated high school, so they're like studying music, but I don't know, it's flexible, and then basically they work on getting their set together for the showcase, but then they also get like 3 or 4 different workshops and master classes essentially. So one of them would be like an improv based one, and one of them would be led I would love to lead it, like how to make a career in the arts scene, and give them the like crash course on that. And then like just like being like there were 3 different ones, I can't really remember, and I think like one of them was having like rehearsals with a musician. Like I had put in my theoretical grant, like Jody would be in it, Miles Black would be in it, Tristan Paxton, another great guy from Surrey, and then Nick Bracewell, also from Surrey. So my idea was to have like Surrey-based musicians. Jody isn't in Surrey right now, but she came from that. And I think that's important for people to see, like people who came from their music community and from some of the same schools, and how you can also do that as well. So that's kind of what I'm hoping maybe can happen in the future as like an annual celebration thing. But in terms of this year, April, I think, is going to end up being that for this because we have the 2 big events happening. Technically, it's a month away from from a year, but I feel like it's close enough.
Oh, yeah.
And then actually in June, we're going to have, because the group that played last year, they were all in grade 11, and now they're in grade 12.
Oh, that's cool. That's a cool
So the end of June, they're going to be playing a set of music, and then they're also going to bring on a newly formed combo from their high school.
Oh wow.
So it's
that's
kind
really
of
special.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really awesome, like kind of really, cuz even themselves, they said like I don't want the combos to die after we leave high school. Like I want them to keep going, because most schools that have combos, they're self-directed, so it can be hard for them to keep going without like direction. But I think this is going to be a great way for me to get a connection with these kids, and then just keep that going. And maybe that's something that happens. Maybe we get these 4 together each year to play, because now that group has actually changed slightly. So David is on piano, and then Karnveer's still on on trumpet. And then they have a new drummer, Paulo, and then Atessa is on bass. And Atessa is a very special person because she does our social media.
Oh, nice.
Her and I together, we kind of man the station.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great to see. I would love to go. Yeah, to that showcase. That's
tell you
the right word
dates.
too. Yeah. I wanna close and again, you can say as much as you want. I want to shout out your mom, because I don't know your mom.
Yes.
But I know enough to know. I know it when I see it, because I was in a band in my early 20s with a guy whose parents went to every single one of our shows.
Yeah.
Every single one. And still go to his shows to this day, and he's still one of my close friends, and I admire it when I see it, and I appreciate it. I see your mom out a lot, not necessarily at your shows. I see you both out at other people's shows all the time. I'm sure when you play, she's there too, but it just seems like she's got this very supportive presence. She's always out there.
Yeah.
So anything you want to do to shout out your mom.
So much. Yes, my mom. I love my mom. Her name is Hardeep, very close to Harmeet, and I've been told we look very similar, which I do see it. My mom doesn't see it though. And yeah, you're so right. I thank you so much for mentioning that. Yeah, she very much is that supportive person coming to all those shows and just like being the person that's there. Like she is such a huge fan of Noah.
Oh, so you got Roggenverse and you got all this stuff.
Yeah, I know there's so many, but the thing that she loves the most is when Noah does like a solo piano show.
Oh,
and he's so awesome at it too.
Did it at Brentwood recently.
Yeah. So anytime there's like a Noah solo piano thing, she's like, we're going. Like, I don't even have to ask her. She's like, we're going. But yeah, she's very much that. I'm very fortunate to have a mother and a family that is supportive of what I'm doing, and is supportive to such a degree that they show up to things. And now, sometimes if I can't be there for sound check for Surrey Jazz Nights, I get my mom to go there. And then her and Atessa kind of get it going until I can show up. And yeah, she's just such an awesome person. And I've been told by like many of my friends and many other people that they just love being around my mom and love her energy and her supportiveness and just curiosity in other people. And I'm so happy that she gets to be that person for other people as well. Because then she's not just like my mom. She's in some ways other people's moms as well. And I know I totally see like some people don't have the best relationship with their parents or with their mom. So I'm glad that I can share that with people.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so impressed by all the things you're doing. I'm so impressed by your energy. This was such like a joyous episode. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoyed it, become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. You'll get the free weekly email where I send an artist event recording to you every week on Tuesday mornings, plus the week's upcoming events in the scene from the gig list. Rhythm Changes is a Chernoff music production. This episode was hosted, produced, mixed, and edited by me. And with that, I will catch you on a future installment. See ya!